powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, this is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Geoff Mosher with us today. He'll join us in just a couple of minutes. Jay in Atlantic City. Congratulations, Jay. You are entered for a chance to win Eagles Commanders Club Box seats, and that'll be for Monday Night Football in Philadelphia. That game, November 14th. You must be present to win. We'll do another qualifier this hour. You must be present to win at Garden State Beer Company out in Galloway there on the White Horse Pike. We'll be there live on October 28th. That's a Happy Hour Friday show. I'm interested in Geoff Mosher, who joins us from InsideTheBirds.com, the Inside the Birds podcast. And don't forget the Inside the Birds pregame show tonight on all the Inside the Birds platforms. And, Jeff, we were just going over some player props. The over-under for Jalen Hurts is 9 carries for 51 yards. Is that the kind of feel that you get from the way the Eagles offense will have to play tonight?
I don't know that they have to play that way. I mean, I think ideally they want Jalen Hurts to run the ball on RPOs every once in a while, 4, 5, 6 times. And, you know he's going to scramble a few times if there's pressure. But anything, when we start getting to 9 or approaching double digits, I think that's more a byproduct of, like last week, kind of running for your life. So I don't know that they want to get that high with the carries total. But, they may have to, depending on how well the Vikings are at pressuring the passer today.
Moshe, it's Ryan. Always a pleasure talking to you, my friend.
What's up?
What's up, man? You look at the ground attack, and let's shift to Miles Sanders for a second. A nice day last week. 13 carries, I believe, 96 yards. Do you feel like the Eagles should go to him a little bit more this week? Like, how big of a factor or how big of a role should he have week to week? And obviously for tonight, in the game plan, how do you think he'll be incorporated?
Yeah, Ryan, I've said from the beginning, if you're the organization and you're kind of set on moving on next year, and this is your last year of Miles Sanders, and there's been no contract extension or major talks, then why not, get the most that you can out of him? You've fortified your running back group to ensure yourself against, his injuries, which he has a lot. You've got Kenneth Gainwell in year 2. You got Boston Scott that you brought back at like a fairly high salary for a third-string running back, maybe not in general compared to NFL terms, but you claimed Trey Sermon off of waivers. He's on your 4 running backs you got on your 53, and then you got at least one guy on your Kennedy Brooks on your practice squad. So you're equipped, and your quarterback is also a runner. So Miles Sanders is by far – people can say what they want about durability or his hands or whatever. He is by a great length the best running back that the Eagles have. All right, when he's on the field and playing, he's way more explosive than anybody that the Eagles have right now. So if you got him for a year, why not use him as much as you can, especially because an RPO offense is going to really cater to his strengths too. I mean, that crash defender has to play the quarterback and the running back at times, and if he plays the quarterback or if he's uncertain and he doesn't sell out and go right after the running back, that's one less defender that Miles Sanders has to worry about. And we've seen Miles can get skinny through the hole and he can turn a 5 or 6 yard gain into a 50 or 60 yard gain pretty easily. And I really thought he ran tough against the Lions. That's another kind of perceived knock on him. That's not really true. He is a tougher runner than he gets credit for. So my philosophy would be, what were you doing last week? Only giving him like 9 carries. Yeah. I know you got a bunch of good running backs, but give him the ball. He's your best running back.
Absolutely. And speaking of give him the ball, let's look at Devonta Smith for a second, because I am curious to get your thoughts and assessment based off of week 1. A.J. Brown, 13 targets, 10 catches, $155 receiving. Devonta Smith targeted 4 times. We all know by now, no catches. What can Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen do better, or what can they change to get Smith more involved? Or maybe, Moshe, they don't need to change anything.
Yeah, right. I would have to say week 1, I'm not going to change anything. I'm a big proponent of my quarterback taking what the defense gives. And the defense is not going to give you the same look every single week because different teams have different philosophies. The Lions were very, very comfortable with rushing Jalen Hurts with 5, 6, sometimes 7 rushers and trying to get them on the run. And when you rush that many people, you have to leave fewer guys in coverage. So A.J. Brown saw single coverage all game long, and the Lions paid the price for that. I watched Vikings tape from their game against the Packers. I've done some research on Ed Donatel. You know, he will blitz, but he's not nearly known for doing what the Lions and Aaron Glenn did. He's more of a 5-man rush if he's going to blitz. He's more of a disguise guy. He might show blitz, but back a lot of guys off. He's going to play a lot of quarters, which is a zone concept. So I'd be shocked if today A.J. Brown saw 15 targets because he was so open against man coverage all the time. I think that the defense tonight is going to call for Jalen Hurts to be a little bit more of a much more of a distributor based on the zone concepts and what he's seeing and where the pressure is coming from.
Geoff Mosher, InsideTheBirds.com, the Inside the Birds pregame show tonight on the Inside the Birds social media platforms. You can check that out. And, Moshe, we talked earlier before you jumped on about John Gannon, and obviously he's a lightning rod. And I want to get your thoughts now that you said you watched it over. You got a chance to see Detroit again for a second time. You can see what they do a little bit better. So did John Gannon not call a good game, or did he put the proverbial, I put players in position to make plays, and they didn't execute. They didn't do it. When you look back now and you see Detroit, do you say, hey, entering tonight, does John Gannon worry you, or do they just need to execute better?
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is definitely 1 + 1 = 2, in that I think that there were a lot of bad personnel plays that you don't put on the defensive coordinator. Like, the first big running play, I think it was the third play of the game, was that DeAndre Swift 50-yard run. And I'm watching T.J. Hawkinson, a tight end, put a down block on Javon Hargrave, who's 305 pounds, right, and knock him into tomorrow while DeAndre Swift runs by. And I think, I don't care if you're not aligned in the right spot. Like, that's man-on-man football. You can't and I know T.J. Hawkinson's a good blocker and a good tight end, but, you're a Pro Bowl defensive tackle and you're getting pushed back like that, and same thing with Fletcher Cox. Like, that's, to me, that's not about the 5 or 6 inches that you're lined up that could be over the guy's shoulder or over his head. That's playing tough football and allowing and fighting, and I didn't see a whole lot of that. But to the other side of that, Mike, you've watched Jared Goff. We all have. We know that he's a quarterback that can be a little iffy and skittish, sort of Eli Manning-ish when you get that pressure on him. And although it might have appeared that Jonathan Gannon blitzed more than normal because he did throw 6 blitzes and he had a variety of them in those 6, it certainly wasn't the time. Like, it was not, that much. Six blitzes is not a whole lot. And when he was getting picked apart in the second half, I don't think he did enough from his end to cause confusion for the quarterback, either by blitzing a little bit more or doing something on the back end, like just bringing a safety down into the box and then dropping him. Like, guys have seen that. That's not confusion. Everybody's doing that these days anyway. You have to be a little bit more on your game if you're not gonna pressure Jared Goff, who's a pretty good thrower of the football, despite the knocks, and you saw it yesterday too. Like, if you don't do something, he's gonna carve you up, and that's what he did.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I gotta, I guess, ask specifically about Hassan Reddick. I mean, if you were to pull Hassan Reddick aside and be like, hey, do you like the way that you were used in week number 1? I mean, do you think that he signed here thinking that was the role he was going to have? Like, don't we want to see him get unleashed a little bit more? Or did they unleash him and he just didn't have a good day?
I mean, he was unleashed, but there were also some times where I was mystified by his usage. I kind of thought, based on some things I saw in training camp, that Gannon had the right idea as using him as a movable piece. Don't just line him up over left tackle, stunt him, twist him, line him up at linebacker and have him blitz the A gap. There were times I saw him line up like a stacked linebacker, like a coverage linebacker, and actually cover. And I thought, it's a whole lot of money to rush the passer to go cover and not even stop the person you're trying to stop.
Jeff, real quick.
Sweat was doing the same thing.
Real quick, is this an area where, we talked about Howie Roseman getting involved. If he said, hey, man, I don't want the guy I paid all this money in coverage, like, send the guy. Would that be an area we'd be okay with Roseman kind of getting those in the business?
I'm not a big fan of the GM kind of laying down ultimatums to a defensive coordinator.
I feel you, but
I wouldn't put it past him. I'd rather just say, hey, look, if you're not happy with what you're seeing, then make a change instead of trying to, be an ultimatum, because Howie really has no business calling game plans.
I'm half kidding, but
I know what you're saying. I mean, listen, Howie has raised his voice on players playing certain times before, but the scheme is a whole different issue. So, but you're raising a good point. I mean, we've already seen Vic Fangio popping up in Eagles practices. So this is a guy that Jonathan Gannon, they had high hopes for, and I can tell you the organization was a little surprised after last year about some of the things they saw. And you saw how hard the organization worked to get him the players they felt he needed. So if things don't change, that's not going to bode well for Jonathan Gannon.
Moshe, based off the matchups tonight for this Eagles-Vikings head-to-head showdown here, home opener, give me one or two X factors on both sides of the ball for the Birds.
There's this guy named Justin Jefferson. I think
I've heard of him.
Huge role. Oh, you heard him? No. Well, I'll give you a really good one, Ryan. And I know Mike and I think talked about this the other day, but I've heard even more. The Vikings offensive line has been perceived to be a weakness for a long time. And some people still look at the Vikings and say, I don't know about that offensive line. But they played a good game last week. Christian Darrisaw is in his second year as left tackle. They have a good guard named Brian O'Neill, who is a tight end convert. And they drafted a couple of kids to play guard. I forget the right tackle's name at this moment. But Greg Cosell told us that he feels that the Vikings offensive line is not the weakness that it once was, and has some pretty strong parts to it now, especially at the tackle positions. So whereas a lot of times you look at a matchup against the Vikings in the past and you say, yeah, they got playmakers, yeah, Kirk Cousins can throw it, but, you can get that offensive line, you can stop him, but it doesn't appear, at least after 1 week, that was the case for Green Bay. And, obviously that offensive line is going to have a whole lot to deal with tonight with the crowd and the silent count. But it is an improved offensive line from Greg and from some other people I've spoken to.
Yeah, their weakness appears to be still up the middle, though. I mean, they're better on the tackles, but Bradbury, he can be had. This is, to me, Moshe, if tomorrow we're talking about Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave not getting a lot of pressure from up the middle, or not having a good night, I think then we got to start worrying about talking about playing time at tackle, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have to start talking about a whole lot of things. Because I do believe the Vikings, if their game plan will be to come in, try to run the ball early with Dalvin Cook up the middle, like you said, try to do what the Lions did, and then use that to set up play action. And I think the Vikings have a lot more vertical threat ability than the Lions did. So if the Vikings are running the ball well early, that's going to be a really bad sign for how the game starts to settle and what the Vikings will be able to do from a downfield attack standpoint.
Yeah. Moshe, one thing last week we saw A.J. Brown have a lot of targets and obviously had a big game. Do you anticipate, like many teams as the year goes on, they kind of evolve, are the Vikings, from what you've seen, the type of defense that's going to let him have his day like that? Or do they make the adjustment to say, no way, we're not letting you catch the ball 10 times. You're not going to beat us?
I would be very, very surprised if A.J. Brown had 10 catches after tonight. Now, I think he can still have a good game, but they're too rooted in zone concepts and having – plus, they have really good safeties. Harrison Smith is – I'm watching some of the tape, and I'm like, man, this guy, he made some plays last week against the Packers, and he keeps getting older, but he's not really losing too much of his ability. He's a good player. But the Vikings do struggle at corner, but I think that's why you'll see Ed Donatel try to protect them more with the safeties playing a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and what you just mentioned, they struggle at corner, but they don't like to. You said they like to go 5. They don't blitz a whole lot like they like to design. But do you think the Eagles' offensive line should have trouble with their front 3? Actually, I think they're playing a 3 for the first time in like their history, maybe.
But it's always a 4-man. Yeah, I mean they might be playing 3, but it'll be a 4-man rush most times. And I think the guy that will potentially give them some trouble is Darius Smith, because they move him all over the place. So he's kind of hard to just say, all right, I got Jordan Mailata. You get the night-long battle with Zadarius Smith. He's a pretty good player. And Daniil Hunter is a guy who's had 12.5 sacks at least 3 times. He's made 2 Pro Bowls. Obviously, you got Lane Johnson on there for it. So it's going to be, this is to me the strength versus strength. The Eagles' offensive line and pass protection against that Vikings defensive line, which has some good players in it. And I imagine the Eagles will win some battles and the Vikings will win some battles.
Should be fun. Monday Night Football at the Link, the home opener, 8:30 tonight to kick. You can hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Moshe, you got a good vibe tonight, or is this a bad matchup for Philadelphia?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be a really close game. I think it's going to be a tight game. I'm going to have to tease my pregame show tonight to find out who I'm picking, but it'll be close. So I'll tell you that. It'll be close.
There you go.
All
Well,
right?
you can check him out on the Inside the Birds pregame show. Thank you, Moshe, and InsideTheBirds.com, of course, after the Eagles game, and he'll be back with us on Wednesday. Tomorrow, Adam Kaplan will be here for Inside the Birds football at 4.